the topic of my presentation, re-evaluating African traditional and folk religions. In spite of the many years of Christian existence in Africa and the ever-growing number of believers, mission research and literature confirm that traditional religions and folk religions are still an unfinished business for Christian mission. Researchers and writers indicate that traditional and folk religious beliefs are still prevalent and widely practiced within and outside of the continent, wherever the African people have migrated. Wherever you see an African, you see a religious person. Be they within the continent or outside of the what? Of the continent. And we will come to reasons why an African is a moving religion. We will come to see reasons why Africans are just religious people. Whether with knowledge or without knowledge, knowing or without knowing, they are religious people. The challenge of witnessing to adherents of these religious systems is evident and is usually attributed to three facts. Number one, there is a limited understanding of the nature of traditional beliefs. Number two, there is a limited understanding of the scope of how wide traditional beliefs are. And lastly, there is the problem of application of wrong mission methods when we are trying to reach people with traditional beliefs. African traditional religions generally refer to religious beliefs of the African people. These beliefs, these indigenous beliefs, often describe the African worldview, the understanding of cosmology, origins, life, death, and relationships. Since the African people are composed of dissimilar groups with varied cultural orientations and experiences, traditional religious beliefs are also highly diverse and comprise beliefs of various ethnic religions and regions. And that's why when you read many of the literature talking about African traditional religions, sometimes now there is an awakening to refer to traditional beliefs of Africans as religions because we don't belong to the same religious belief system. We are diverse. People from the south practice traditional beliefs differently from people from the north. People from the west practice differently from people from where? From the east. And even among us, those from the east, we still don't practice things in the same way. On the other hand, African folk religions are a blend of beliefs and practices between formal religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, or Islam, a blend of those beliefs of those religions with traditional beliefs of African communities. Robert Redfield points out that folk religion and traditional religions are distinguished by whether or not people acknowledge an allegiance to a world religion or not. In his study, he says folk religions are a reworking of long existing beliefs of a community within the confession of a major world religion. In other words, folk religions are a blend of African beliefs with beliefs of another major world religion, be it Hinduism, be it Christianity, or Islam. Some of the folk religions, which I cannot be able to exhaust, some of the folk religions that we can have as an example, for example, here in Kenya, we had an outlawed religion we call it Dini ya Msambwe, which was being practiced mostly among the Luya in Western Kenya. Somebody said, is it still there? At some point, it was an outlawed religion. What Binyam Msambwe did was that it was forefront in the fight against colonialism and the fear that African values, such as respect for the elderly, was being undermined by Christianity. Though the group was outlawed because of assumed violence against Christians, its remnants still worship Were, Nyasai, a god or a god in Luya. And they worship this Were through the ancestors called Misambwa in shrines. Other folk religions include the Akurino in central Kenya, who also was a force against colonialism in the mid-20th century, and the Akurino became withdrawn from the society. They rejected everything that was foreign except the Bible. They adopted an adamant non-cooperation attitude, not only to the Europeans, but also to the fellow Africans. In later years, we have a militant wing of the Akurino, which we call Mungiki, who promote traditional beliefs among its subjects and will inflict punishment, including death, if those demands are not respected. Surely, it is beyond me at this point in time to exhaustively present all folk religions from all regions of Africa. And that is why I will propose a continual investigation in our various places of ministry as to which folk religions are found in our regions. What is the scope of traditional religions and folk religions in Africa? The tentacles of African traditional beliefs and practices are widespread and exist wherever the African people are found. Traditional beliefs or religions are not religious movements such as Christianity or Islam with the key founders or codified doctrines for one to pledge allegiance to. Naturally, traditional religions are non-evangelistic, with no intent to conquer new territories or systematically witness to people or convert new followers. Instead, these traditional religions characterize a way of life. Adherents are not converted, but are born and incorporated into a system and a community whose beliefs are already defined for each member to follow. Are you listening to me? Yeah. This probably explains why these philosophies continue to hold a strong grip in the mind of Africans in spite of migrating to new lands or advancing in education or are converted to other religions, because these are child-born beliefs. Somebody might assume once people have gone to the diaspora, they have gone to Europe, Australia, wherever they have gone, the religion remains here. But the opposite is true. Wherever the African has always moved to, they have not only moved with their certificates, academic qualifications, but they have also moved with what? Their religions. They have moved on with the traditional beliefs. I was so shocked when I attended one time a church in Minnesota, some time back, and this was during announcements. The church pastor stood and was complaining that some women in the church had come to America with evil eyes. They had come to America with evil eyes. And the church members with young kids had to dress their kids with the red clothing for fear of evil eyes in the church. And so somebody asked, and was asking in the community and said, we have never heard that witchcraft and the charms can go beyond the sea. How did this happen? The reason is just simple. Wherever there is an African, the African has moved with what? With the belief system. You can take an African out of Africa, but you cannot take Africa out of the what? Out of the mind. A study conducted by the Pew Research Center confirms that traditional beliefs are still important among Christians and Muslims. From some countries surveyed, many people who confess Christianity or Islam continue to retain beliefs and rituals that are characteristic of traditional religions. In 4 countries researched, it is noted that half or more of the population believe that sacrifices to ancestors or spirits can protect them from harm. My previous speaker talked about the issue of fear. In this report of the Pew Research, roughly a quarter or more of the population in 11 countries believe in the protective power of charms, amulets, shrines, and other revered objects. Traditional religions have also impacted and continually influenced some aspects of daily life. The Pew report indicates that more than 3 in 10 people say they sometimes consult traditional healers when someone in the household is sick. Others also admit using traditional healers, while the alternative to traditional healers may be attributed in part because of economic reasons and an absence of healthcare alternatives. It may also be rooted in the religious belief that traditional healing is effective than Western medicine or than prayer. Geographically, we are talking about the scope of traditional beliefs. Geographically, traditional religious philosophies can be found everywhere across the continent. The various communities who inhabit the continent are largely distinguished not only by culture, but also by their belief system, which give each group distinct identity. Even though there exists some similarity in religious teachings and practice, each community possesses its own religious system. Johnny Mbiti observes that even within 1/3 of the region of the continent occupied by Muslims, one can still find traces of traditional religious beliefs, indicating that these religions have not been suppressed by other religions such as Islam or Christianity. Apart from the borders of the continent, traditional beliefs, as I indicated, can also be found in foreign lands. Because of migration and globalization, many Africans now inhabit other worlds like Europe, North America, the Caribbean, and Australia. As people migrate to these lands for various reasons, it is apparent that in addition to moving with their families and educational status, they have also moved along with their childhood, religious beliefs, and practices. Most of these immigrants continue to practice traditional beliefs even though they are away from the mother continent. Thus, these beliefs are spread and they thrive and they exist contrary to the popular assumptions that the traditional religious beliefs are waning. I want to skip a major section there about the nature and the characteristics of traditional beliefs and folk religions in Africa, and come to an important part of this paper which talks about suggested mission methods. How can we be able to witness or reach people who are engrossed into traditional belief systems? In other words, how can we witness to ourselves as we sit here? How can we witness to ourselves and to others who are not here Number one, I would suggest a people group approach. African communities are mostly communally structured and people-centered groups. The International Mission Body describes people group as an ethno-linguistic group with a common self-identity that is shared by various members. People live and belong to a family, to a clan, and to a community where interaction with the members is inevitable. Shared cultural traditions such as religious beliefs and language play a key role in uniting people. Sharing of resources, ideas in this context is evidently common and it generally characterizes a way of life for all community members. In this community-centered life, religious beliefs are also mutual to everyone. Group beliefs, group religion is superior to individual convictions and pursuits. Anyone attempting to introduce new beliefs and practice is generally viewed as intrusion to social order. Furthermore, anyone who accepts outside ideas is held with the contempt and may be expelled from the community or punished. New ideas or new teachings are treated with suspicion and viewed as an attempt to break down order and thus a breakup of the entire society. Because of this cultural setup, it is imperative that missionaries, Christian witnesses, approach adherents of traditional religions as a group rather than as an individual. Effective evangelism to adherents of ATR will require efforts, will require witnessing to them in their social groupings, such as families, villages, or clans. Evangelistic efforts such as public campaign, where individuals are asked to accept the message exclusive of the community, may be viewed as an abandonment of values, which often result in rejection or expulsion of converts from their families or from the community. Even though this approach may not guarantee a personal response to the gospel call, which is often presented in Scripture, group-centered approach is advantageous in many ways. Number one, people like to become Christians without crossing racial, linguistic, or class barriers. The homogeneous unity principle advocated by church growth developers is observed to be a positive approach in reaching people with an closed religious mindset. The people group approach remains an effective strategy for witness communities who share religious beliefs and language, among others. Ronald Smith has said, people groups are the natural and the logical choice for communicating with the individuals within them. Even though these individuals differ from each other in unique ways, they nevertheless have some common attitudinally, behaviorally, and linguistically. The second reason why this method appears to be more profitable to approach people from ATR backgrounds, it's because the ATR adherents or followers are actually community-oriented societies. Individual allegiance or family to family or clan is higher than individual decisions and pursuits. Communal decision-making ensures respect, identity, traditions, and social order. Since many people are likely to respond to the gospel calling, an expulsion from the community is unlikely when similar ideas are shared among many people. Number three, meeting people in a group setting provides a larger audience. Are you listening to me? Yeah. Meeting people at a community setting, it provides a larger audience. You don't have to go with the PA system to call people. You're going to have them right there, a large audience. Number 4, targeting people as a group in clans or villages rather than individuals also ensures that the Christian witness are respectful of the African culture of community, and they will not be viewed as the destroyers of culture. Moreover, strategies which demand individual public decision in isolation of the rest often result in consequences such as rejection by the community or expulsion from the family or community. Approach number 2, developing local theologies. In spite of the many challenges associated with the local theology development, the idea of scriptures speaking to a particular group with specific and particular needs is important. Followers of traditional religions face challenges which are explicit to them, to their context and experiences, be they physical or religious. Often then these challenges are unknown or vaguely understood by witnesses who parachute, just come into the community and they parachute out. Traditional beliefs which people are accustomed with have always provided answers to their questions. So for a missionary who oftentimes is an outsider to make an attempt to address community issues comprehensively, it will require such a missionary to spend time, length experience with the people in order to understand what the real issues are. In such a situation, the local community should be guided to develop its own understanding of what Scripture says and how relevant the Bible is into their context. Approach number 3 is worldview transformation. I'm sure we heard of the presentation from Dr. Bubakar in the morning about worldview transformation. Transformation of worldviews is fundamental in Christian mission, and it is at the heart of the Adventist mission. The change of converts' upbringing orientations is necessary since people are called from various cultural backgrounds to renounce sin in their cultures and return to God, their Creator and Lord. The worldview transformation should guide and characterize our mission among traditional religious contexts. And it should begin right at the initial witnessing process. The reason why we can be mature in the church, having lived in the church for many years, but still have the fear of spirits. Have people tell you not to drive out because there's death in the family. It's because to some extent our worldview was not changed. This should begin right in the first stages of our evangelism. Paul Hibbert says Christians must move beyond immediate ministries to the long and difficult task of transforming people's animistic worldviews into biblical ones. Working within traditional Christian explanation system, there is a really danger that the gospel will be transformed into Christopaganism, animism with a Christian clothing. New Christians often see prayer as some kind of magic. The Bible is seen as a charm, amulet, and the preachers as magicians, powerful than their old ones. Christianity is perceived as a powerful witchcraft and spiritism. Yet the fear of spirits continues to remain in the hearts of people. So how shall we change people's worldview? We know that change of worldview is not a quick one. It's not a quick fix. Worldview change takes long. It requires developing of positive friendship, relationship with the people, challenging the existing worldviews, and making the Bible central in embodying the biblical worldview to believers. The fourth step in reaching out to people from traditional religious contexts is having effective communication of the gospel. Communication plays a key role in missions. How do you communicate the gospel? Employing appropriate and relevant communication methods. In the context of traditional religious beliefs, we do understand that all these groups come from oral backgrounds. And therefore, mission or witnessing people from traditional religious beliefs require that we employ oral methods of communication. The chronological Bible, storytelling, a strategic plan to share the panorama of God's great redemptive story, presupposes that since the concept of time in traditional religious context is viewed as present events with the past and the future in it, telling histories of the Bible in chronological order will help adherents of ATR to depend upon memory, to retain what they have learned, and to remember life experiences through the lens of stories they have heard. Number 5 is friendship evangelism. Friendship evangelism is often hailed as a successful approach of mission that is less threatening and ensures openness in the gospel call. Surely, not everything in African traditional culture is evil. We need to mix with the people and make friends. We have to mix with the people and make friends before we urge them to follow Christ Jesus. Christ's method alone will give what? True success in reaching the people. The Savior did what? He mingled with men as one who desired their good. He showed his sympathy for them, ministered to their needs, and won their confidence. Then he made them do what? Follow. If I were to witness to the Akorino, it won't be evil for me just to dress like an Akorino in the village. Surely, dressing like an Akorino, what evil does it have? It makes you belong to a community. A strategy of making people friends. Study their movements. Understand what they are after. And once you have won their hearts and confidence, you draw them unto Jesus. You bid them, follow me. The last strategy here is the prayer strategy. In Christian witness, prayer is both a biblical imperative and a missional strategy. The imperative to pray in mission work is rooted in God's admonition that people engaged in his work should do what? Should pray. It shows in the life of Christ, in the life of the apostles, that prayer was very fundamental in mission work. Paul constantly reminds the early church that our warfare is not against flesh, against blood, but against the rulers, against the principalities and authorities of darkness in where? In high places. He appealed to the early church to pray so that God may open doors for the gospel. This should also be a model for mission among the followers of traditional beliefs. Praying for access to regions where Satan is actively engaged in territorial demonic presence and warfare. Praying for recognition of open doors, for removal of all barriers, so that the people can be receptive and willing. Obstacles must be removed to allow God's word to spread rapidly and freely among the people from animistic backgrounds who hold to traditional religious beliefs, such as ancestral worship, demonic possession and the fear of spirits, prayer is indispensable. By trapping individuals as well as whole communities in false assumptions concerning reality, Satan denies people obedience to God for generations until people are held in strongholds of self-sufficiency and high-minded wisdom. In my conclusion, against popular notion that traditional beliefs in Africa are diminishing, the opposite is true. Indigenous religions are still practiced, even though many people have accepted Christian faith or are followers of other world religions. Some of the traditional beliefs are mingled with other religious teachings, which is a source of folk practices across the continent. In order to witness people from these backgrounds, there is need for Christian witnesses to understand the nature, the scope of traditional beliefs, and to employ biblically but culturally appropriate methods of evangelism. Thank you so much.